Good morning. This is Dr. Matthew Dunn, host of The Future of Email. My guest today, Melanie Balke, CEO and founder of The Email Marketers.
Marketers.
I didn't tell you this in advance, Melanie. You are guest number 100.
Wow, lucky number.
Episode 100. So, kind of fun. I think it's almost 3 years we've been doing this. So, nice to have you. So you're an email person, I think. Yes.
Yes, I think so too. I hope I am.
Phil, just top line your agency, what you focus on, who your customers are, and so on.
Yeah, so we're the email marketers. As the name says, we do email and SMS. We started predominantly focusing on e-commerce. That was really our bread and butter.
Mhm.
But we've expanded to doing more B2B SaaS businesses as well. We really help companies in two ways. One, we function as their outsourced email department.
Yeah.
Well, if you don't want to build an email department in-house for whatever reason, it's too expensive or you don't want to deal with it, we do that full thing from A to Z.
Mhm.
Or we help companies actually build an email team in-house with a done with you kind of service.
Gotcha. And yeah, I read about the done with you service. I thought that was a droid and a very interesting move, just because you'll hear that debate. Oh, we should totally do this in house. We don't know how to do it. And you're gonna,
Yep.
we can help. Germany originally,
Yes. Yeah.
and
Right.
as much seems like as much a junkie of higher ed as I am. Like I think I saw 4 different schools on your LinkedIn profile. Uh, I'm curious, how did you go from, I think you were at an influencer marketing, like an agency, and
Yeah.
you got sucked into email specifically, and you're darn well younger than I am. Why email?
Well, total coincidence. It actually happened pre-agency. In Germany, I worked in consulting, so I had a consulting background. And when I came to the US, I joined one of the first, if not the first, e-com furniture businesses to sell made-to-order sofas online.
Okay.
When I joined them, I was their first marketing hire. And like a typical consultant, I joined and I did a full analysis of everything.
Okay.
Well, one of the big pieces they were missing was email because they were selling these $2,000 sofas online and never bothering to think about cross-selling coffee tables, nightstands, bed frames, or even just pillows and throws, which is all products they had.
Yeah.
And so I said, okay, I'm going to do this. And like in a typical startup, it's not like you get a team to do it with. It's like you figure out how to do it and you do it. And so I taught myself email marketing. I consumed about every blog that exists in the World Wide Web and just rolled out what I thought would be a good strategy. And it was a good strategy. And it was kind of neat to see how much money you can actually make with email marketing. And that made me fall in love with it. Then when I left that brand, I went in-house for an agency. And originally in a very generalist position, but they were selling email to their clients and realized they had no one who actually does email. They don't have an email department. There's one person who knows how to do email, and it's me. And so that was part of why they had hired me, originally more generalist, but then eventually just kind of like leading the email department.
Right. Okay. And there's a bunch of stuff I want to unpack or sort of delve into there. When you say do email, let's assume that some of the people might be listening to or watching this are not as involved in this as maybe you are, and to some extent I am. You're not talking about like the bits and bytes of send. Those for the most part are handled by platforms these days. What if someone who does email focus on, pay attention to? Like, tell me about the game of doing that.
Very good question. I think it boils down into a couple of different pieces. One is strategy, right? You want someone who looks at the data, who looks at your customer life cycle, who looks at your customer and understands what their pain points are and whatnot,
Mm-hmm.
and builds a strategy around that. So both for your automated life cycle, which is like person comes to my website or person booked a call or somehow they turn into a lead.
Mm-hmm.
How do I hit them with automated messages to turn them into a customer?
Mm-hmm.
And the second thing is your campaign. So if you're an e-commerce, your Mother's Day campaign or whatnot, or Black Friday campaigns, like more time sensitive things.
Yeah.
So building a strategy for that, and then writing the emails, designing the emails if necessary. Not all of them have to be designed, and actually implementing them in your ESP, segmenting what segment you're going to send it to, which has become so much more important than it used to be even. I mean, like back in the day, you could probably just go send to everyone and you would
Yeah.
have been
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
How post iOS 14 and with the, new deliverability, I don't want to call them restrictions, but guidelines that are coming next year,
Mhm.
especially, you have to be really good at like segmentation for deliverability as well.
Gotcha. Gotcha. And the iOS 14 reference for those of you who don't play email baseball all day, Apple essentially said, we're going to auto open every email as far
Yep.
as the loading signal that was used for 20 odd years to say, Melanie opened this email, Matthew didn't.
Yep.
So we lost that. Who's opening? We don't know. And come February, the bigger inbox guys, the Gmails, Yahoos, Comcast, and so on, are going to go, you're sending a lot of email. We want you to be authenticated, valid, legit behavior, et cetera, et cetera. Because frankly, fighting spam is the constant battle that they're facing. They're just trying to keep up with that flood, I think.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think it was iOS 15 actually that hit
15,
email.
15.
iOS 14. I made a mistake there. Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah. And I think that battle is only going to become more intense, right? Because email's been around forever and everyone always says email's dead. I have this funny sticker here somewhere.
You got the
Email
emails
is not
sticker?
dead.
Yes.
Um, but I do think, because it's not dead and more people are getting into the inboxes, deliverability restrictions are just going to get higher and higher and more strict.
Agreed. Let me give you a couple theses, see what you think of it. One, because email is still an open channel, not really owned by anybody, the the potential for abuse of that channel is always part of the landscape. I don't actually have to ask permission to send someone a message. So there are guys who do that by the millions a day without asking for permission.
Yep.
That message, that interruption, that storage space, all that other stuff, unwanted.
Yep.
And so we're all playing this constant keep up game. I got to tell you, I noticed that you use Superhuman, which we might want to discuss at some point. The very cool email client.
Thank you.
I do a lot of delete based on who sent first thing in the morning. Like they don't even get read because invariably, especially if you're at all active professionally, you end up with, why am I getting email from like this guy, that list, that list, that list, and reading it to screen it. I don't have time. Unsubscribing, I should, but I could spend all day getting unsubscribed. So it's just like, oof, gone, right? Never
Yep.
even seen. And someone will be back tomorrow. And kind of it's easier to deal with that in 5 minutes than to spend a day trying to winnow it down. Um, so the inbox guys having to grapple with that and try to get some return on the fairly amazing infrastructure they provide for inboxes. It's a reasonable thing to do. I appreciate that they're continuing to fight the good fight, say we want legit stuff. We don't want unwanted, not legit stuff. But as a marketer, how do you tread that sort of perilous dividing line that says stay legit, be seen as legit, make sure the signals say should be delivered, not should go into the bit bucket.
I mean, I think, it's almost just be a good sender. This is what I tell. Be a good
Yes,
sender,
a good
right?
sender.
And I mean, like, it sounds so simple, but it really is like, just don't spam people and actually ask yourself, does my email have reason for existing in this person's inbox? Like, is there any value add that I'm providing? And I think that's really the crux of it, right? Then you can get into the technicality of like setting up your technical side of the inbox
Sure,
and the
sure.
segmentation and whatnot. But like at the core of the value is just like, am I being a good sender? And I think what people forget too with email, which is something I always harp on, is email is a really great way to build community. Email is for a lot of personal brands, you see this, right? They send emails. Those are the emails that always get open. That's where they get their leads from for their coaching business or whatnot, because they're focusing on value. They're going, I'm going to send an email and this person's going to love my email. It's going to be so helpful that eventually they're going to want to be a client. And I think that's a really good way to look at email, and other brands, even e-commerce brands, should look at it that way more. Like, how do I use email to build community and provide value for my customers or even my prospects who are not yet customers? And layer that on top of the transactional stuff where you want to generate the sale, I think will allow you to have a solid email system.
Well put. Yeah. Yeah. Very well put. That's a good synthesis of, of all of the advice and blogs and so on that you read. And it's not hard over a cup of coffee or a beer to say, what would a good sender do? You're like, don't be a dork,
Yep.
think of them first, like all that kind of stuff. But don't companies struggle to keep that in mind and keep that staffed and resourced versus, oh crap, sales are down. Can we just blast everybody and goose sales a little bit?
For sure. I think that's also the common misconception people have, that they think if they just blast everybody's sales will go up, right?
Mm.
I have yet to see that like come true. Is that
Yeah.
someone was like, it's like some C-level executive. They're like, we have 1 million emails, just send to all of them. And then there's some poor email person who's like, no, no, please, please don't. And
Don't
they's
do
like,
that.
no, no, we're going to send to all of them. Or they just don't have an email person, and there's some poor marketing coordinator that has no experience with email that goes and does blast everyone. And people don't realize, like, one, that doesn't work, right? It's like, it just does not work.
Yeah.
Two, doing that over a long period of time will absolutely crush your email program.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's so many accounts I go into and I'm like, oh my God, you guys have been sending like for months, if not years, to everyone, right? You haven't segmented anything.
Yeah.
And you are getting the data that no one's opening because your open rates are like 5%. Your click rates are like 0.1% or something ridiculous. Like, you are getting that data, but you're just ignoring the feedback, right? If you
Yeah.
look at the
Yeah.
feedback,
Yeah.
we actually able to understand like, oh, something here is not working. And I get it. Listen, like, if I had 1 million people email list, it would be really hard to accept that 30% of those people will just naturally churn every year.
Yeah.
Not churn doesn't just mean unsubscribe. It like means they
Like,
stop using the email address, or they just opt to delete your email like you do.
yeah, or or life moves on. You're like, I don't have time for that right now. Easier to get it out of my face. I want to hook over to B2B and then come back to the good senders thing in a minute. But you mentioned that you've expanded from e-commerce to B2B. As a business, I find B2B, business outreach to be harder and harder and just aggravating as heck these days. Like the blast screens people have up professionally are very, very hard
Yeah.
not to get through or to get around, but just like, hi, I've got a gold brick I want to give you. No, seriously. Nah, sorry, don't have time. Can't. What do you advise your B2B clients? What's a good sender in B2B?
That's a very good question. I think about the types of emails you would want to receive. So what we send, like, let's say B2B cold email,
Mhm.
that's a really good example, right? Because cold email is so inundated for B2B. Like, everyone wants to sell me cold email, actually.
Yes.
Email. But like everything, right? Video production, yada, yada. And I'm like, with cold email, I think a lot of it comes down to, what can you do for me? How are you different than others? And don't waste my time. I actually don't think those cutesy, long, cold email outreach emails, like, I'm not even going to read that. I don't even
No.
have time to read emails from people I know, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, keeping that in mind, I think, what are the types of emails you would want to receive as a business person? And then for like warm email stuff, I think in B2B education is really big. So education around subject matter is huge, because usually what happens is people go, okay, now I have all this information. What do I now do with it?
Hmm.
Where do I go with this? Like, let's say you're an HR platform, right? And your whole thing as an HR platform is you help businesses stay compliant with all the different regulations. Well, here's the thing. Most people have no idea what the different regulations is. They
Yeah.
don't know. And I've just learned about more regulations, and I'm like, oh my God, this is like insanity. And I have to do something different for every state, right? So go educate the people that somehow got on your list for HR platform around these regulations. Because what happens is you make them understand the gap of like, I didn't know I needed this. Now I know I need this. Now I have all this information, but I don't have the skills or time or resources to do it in house or myself.
Hmm. Gotcha. Gotcha. That's good. That's good. And that's the kind of message I might open. It is difficult and understandably difficult um to know who's got the problem that you can help educate about. Like
Mhm.
I get some cold outreach emails that they're pretty darn comical. Like what people are offering to do or thinking, you need our telephony over IP. No, actually I don't. Like seriously, just don't. Million reasons why, but delete, right? So the time it takes to narrow down, niche down, research, like be reasonably sure that, well, if you do business in California, you definitely have regulations to be educated on. So I got to make that joke. There you go. But like that upfront investment of time, I think pays off. What do you think?
I do think so too. Yeah, absolutely. Um, I also feel like it positions you as the expert, right? It is your way of marketing too.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah, yeah. No question about that. And everybody appreciates everybody appreciates getting some free help. The the complement to that, and we'll get off the cold email B2B thing because boy, we could beat that up all day.
yeah.
I
That's
I
also just numbers game, right? Just to add to that, Matthew. Like
yeah,
the reason we get so many like cold emails that are not relevant to us, because all they're looking for is like, are you a business that has this much in revenue in this kind of industry,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah,
It's a timing thing and it's a numbers game they're playing.
yeah. And it is hard to get substantive information at scale, right? Like going through a list of 100 potential companies who might want the widgets that we've got. It's still messy. I have to say one of the uses I've started finding for, we'd end up talking about AI, right? One of the uses I've started finding as uh, Claude and ChatGPT and so on start getting hooked up to more live information sources is like you sort of help me narrow faster because doing it manually on the unstructured web and LinkedIn it's so flippin' time consuming
Yep.
that it's easy to just blow it off and say, got the right SAIC code, cool, let's hit send. Yeah.
Yep.
Which may not be the right thing to do, but there's only so many nanoseconds in a day, stuff like that. Um, Back over to Good Sender for a second, and I want to introduce another loop there because you mentioned that you do SMS as well. Apple announced a couple weeks ago that in some shape or form they're going to jump on the RCS rich communication bandwagon. I don't know how they're going to do it. I'm going to guess it's not going to be exactly how Google wants them to do it, but I think we're about to see the messaging app that, particularly in the US, people use all the time start to become richer than it's been. And I suspect that there's going to be a bit of a gravitational pull towards marketing on that channel. What do you think?
So this is what I've said for SMS, and I've actually said it since 2022. I always go, we're still in the wild, wild west of SMS.
Yeah.
We're still in that period of time where in email, there was no promotions folder. There was no spam folder. As long as it had someone's email address, your email would go into one little inbox.
Yeah.
And that's what SMS is right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
We don't have promotions or spam folders per se yet.
Yep.
That is going to come.
Yeah.
That is going to come. And SMS is going to grow as a marketing channel and it's going to get more annoying for us consumers. And we don't have to. Yeah. I mean, like brands are going to have to figure out, okay, how do we make this less annoying again? And then there's going to be an SMS promotions tab and then there's going to be an SMS spam folder. I mean, it's going to happen even if you just look at the amount of scam. I feel like scams are always a good
Yeah.
indicator
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Like, when the email scams happened and everyone was trying to wire money because they
Yeah.
were a
Yeah.
royal family somewhere. So that's happening on SMS now, right? People are texting you like, hey, gorgeous. Hey, cutie. Like, so someone sold my text number to some person in China or India where,
Yeah.
and, sometimes it's actually really sad because these people are actually forced in like slavery to go scam people, right?
Wow. Wow.
Um, but that is happening.
Yeah.
So
You're I agree with you about the scam. It's actually scam, crooks, porno, like there's these signal early adopters every time a new communication channel shows up and like, yep, yep, okay, so that's gonna work. Why? Because you can see that they're there
Yep.
already. And there are no folders in my message client yet.
Yeah.
It's flat. You're right. Ugh, no wonder it's such a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
Um, we'll talk about the richer media in a second, but talk to me, give me your take on how the coexistence of SMS, email works now and how you think it's going to evolve.
I think it's a both and. Like they're not substitutes for each other. They're very different channels. I mean, sending someone an email and sending someone text, even in your personal life, those are two different purposes, right? So the main mistake I see people make is they treat SMS like a copy
Shorthand.
an email. Yeah. Like basically like, oh, okay, I'm going to send this to you via email. I'm also going to send you a shorter version via text. And I think that is so wrong. And I have like my favorite example. I always bring this up. There's Ease, which is a cannabis delivery company. And they're in kind of hot waters because they bought a bunch of email lists, SMS numbers, and started texting people. That doesn't go over as well as it does via email when you do that.
No,
So
no.
there's like a class action lawsuit going on, but
Yeah. Yeah.
they would send me every Thursday, like, here's $20 off. Here's $20 off. And granted, their copywriting was always good. But like as an email marketer, I look at that and I'm like, they've sent me the same offer and text basically for 5 weeks. And I've not taken any action. And they're really missing out on using this channel as again, a value add. Complete opposite example is We're Not Really Strangers. I don't know if you've heard of them.
And
So they're like an intimacy card game. You play with people and you ask each other deep questions and you build connection that way.
Mhm.
So it matches their brand, but they would send texts. Like one time I was working and it was like 10 p.m. or probably like 8 p.m. And I got a text and it was like, oh, hey, bestie, I'm proud of you right now. Just wanted to let you know that. I was like, who's this from? But I had such a positive emotional reaction to it
yeah, yeah,
that I remember that. And I tell people on podcasts now all the time.
yeah, yeah.
If you Google Ease SMS, all you see is the class action lawsuit.
Right.
If you Google We're Not Really Strangers SMS,
Yeah.
they've gone so viral with their SMS that it's all over Twitter. And they had to make it a whole separate service. It's a whole separate paid service now because their SMS list grew so fast.
So they really honored sort of the social, cultural, personal attributes and dimensions of the channel, which are different from me.
Exactly. Which are completely different than email, right? And they're complementary, but they're
Yeah, emails, I'll get to it and later and file and folder and all of that stuff. I have multiple email inboxes. I'm sure you don't. SMS, again, particularly US, we should talk about other domains a little bit, but in particularly US, Canada, like that's the most personal interrupt.
Yep.
From a message perspective, like bing, if that my phone went off while we're sitting here talking live, I'd look at it. Darn it. I'd look at it. I should lay it down flat, but I'd look at it and I have the screen up where I can see it.
Yeah.
Right. There's one brand I've continued to subscribe to their SMS because I really like their t-shirts. All they're doing is training me to wait for the sale.
Yeah.
There's sale after sale. I know. Oh, I like the blue one. Wait, in a month it'll be 80% off. Right.
Yeah.
Are they really gaining with that? And SMS is flipping expensive compared to email.
Oh, so expensive.
Yeah. So the cannabis company you mentioned, like just continuing to pound you, that's an expensive hobby.
And there's so there's a reason I'm not converting, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
for a lot of times it's just maybe the desire isn't there. Maybe I don't trust this brand enough. And with this, I like the cannabis example because I think it's a really interesting customer. You have so many different angles you can go. You can go the health route. A lot of people use it for health, right?
Right.
And then if they self-identify as that customer, why don't you give them value-added content around health?
Yeah. Yeah.
They can be like the funny, whatever, recreational user. If it's that customer, why don't you send them an SMS on Friday night and say like, your I don't know, your stoner movie picks for the weekend, right? Whatever you want to do. But it's just like identify your customer,
Yeah.
figure out what they like, and then add some value to their life, and then you can sprinkle in your sales. And with
Yeah. Yeah.
sprinkling sales, people will actually want to go and check out your sales. And for a t-shirt company, even if you don't have like what value are they going to add, right? Like that's a different audience. But just like talk about new product launches.
Yeah.
Talk about like an interesting fact about the fabric that you use. Not every text has to be
Sell, sell,
uh,
sell.
sell. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, cannabis, that's an interesting one because you're in California, right? I'm in Washington state. Washington was the second of the US states to legalize cannabis. So we've ridden through that. It's just part of the landscape now, just like a gas station, so to speak. If I got on a list like that and started getting those texts, it irked me because it's like, it's just not something I do.
Yeah.
If someone asked me up front, do you want this or not? I appreciate that. Or, are you interested in, we're keeping track of cultural impact or adoption or whatever else. Like maybe there's a business angle where I go, yeah, keep me informed, right? Doesn't mean I'm going to buy any, but keep
Yeah.
me informed. But, but here's one of the dilemmas I see, and I see this in email and text. Uh, Getting enough input back from the always busy consumer or customer to be able to bucket, segment, group, and be more targeted it's hard.
Yeah.
It's very hard, right? You got most companies' email lists have email addresses in them, and not across the board, not a hell of a lot else.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a mighty slim branch to be standing on when you're trying to segment, group, be meaningful, be specific, etcetera. It's like, wow, it's a bunch of guesswork sometimes.
There's not a lot going on there. I mean, that's why for e-commerce specifically, I love Klaviyo. I think
We're
what they're
gonna talk about Klaviyo. I knew that. Yes, go.
well, that's why I love Klaviyo for e-commerce and, SendLane kind of as the incumbent has very similar functionality, but what they do well is the data. It's not really anything else but the fact that they're so good at putting together the data, which is like, I can go into Klaviyo and I can say, show me everyone who's bought the green shirt. Because I'm going to go on, I'm going to cross sell them the yellow pants.
Yeah, yeah.
Don't judge my fashion sense in this case, but as an example, right?
Right, right.
Um, I can go and I can say, show me everyone who's been on the website in the last 30 days.
Yeah.
Show me everyone who's bought more than 3 times and spent more than $150. And so that's what's really, really cool. And then I can have people self-identify too, right? Via the topic. One, hey, why are you interested in cannabis? Medicinal, recreational.
Yeah.
I'm actually just here for business news. I'm not a user. Or I can have them self-identify in the email. So one thing we did is we sent an email where we were just like, hey, why are you, for example, like, what is your main concern with your skin? It's dry or it's oily or I'm breaking out
Single buttons.
and you can just click in the email.
Yeah.
And when they click in the email, their profile gets tagged. And now I know this person's concern is oily skin.
Yeah, yeah,
And then I can build that segment and target the emails around that.
yeah. Yeah, and I would have guessed that that was one of the things that would make you you're clearly a Klaviyo fan, even just from your LinkedIn profile, as am I. Um, they're they're better tied into the other systems involved in commerce. And so many marketers are kind of hamstrung. It's like the cash register is not talking to the kitchen, is not talking to the head waiter. And they're kind of guessing over and over because they're not necessarily getting the data of those other touch points back where Klaviyo, particularly with Shopify, let's be
Yep.
realistic. Klaviyo has done the work to wire those things together. $150 million investment from Shopify probably didn't hurt the motivation to get that done, but okie dokie. Not everybody, it's not the right choice or the available choice for everybody. And I find it interesting that some of the big, expensive ESPs are way the heck behind on that particular dimension, my humble opinion. But
Yeah.
you work with yeah, tools you've got. I'm just curious because I want to, while I've got the time talking with you, how much attention do you pay to behavioral and marketing practice differences between where you live and work now and Germany, where I think you said you're from?
Good question. A little bit. I mean, we have clients in Europe. We work with German brands, so we have to pay attention to GDPR and all this
Okay.
good stuff.
Okay.
So we pay attention to it. Is it like my main focus every day? No, not at all, but we
Yeah.
definitely pay
Yeah.
attention to it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's easy. I'm sure it happens in every country. You sort of think the way you do things is normal. You know, it's normal for that place. It's not normal for this
Yeah.
place. Is it WhatsApp that's so dominant in Europe? No one uses here?
Yeah, it's dominant in Europe for like personal chats.
Personal chats.
I know in like China, WeChat and stuff like that
WeChat
are
is, yeah.
also really dominant for like marketing stuff.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's like it's the the one app, the Uber app, uh, the thesis, which has worked. Like in China,
Yeah.
for sure, it's worked, and it's sort of de facto seems to have stuck in Europe. I don't think it's gonna happen here. If it's gonna happen, it's gonna sneak in under the guise of RCS
Yeah.
because my sort of the relationships I care most about are already on that channel, right?
Yep.
And if I said to my wife, "Hey, let's use WeChat," she'd say, "Yeah, sleep in the basement. Shut up." Right? It's not going to happen
Yeah.
because she's just used to it, and that gets wired in
Right.
as technology's evolved, and it's very hard to unwire.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I won't say like we do use WhatsApp like personally,
yeah,
interestingly, and maybe it's because I'm European, but I do use it with a lot of friend groups when it comes to group
interesting,
text messages.
interesting.
People don't have an iPhone.
Right, the green bubble thing, sort of. Yeah, and you'll get professionals who will sort of, if they have enough stuff in common. I've seen people adopt Slack for that.
Yep.
There was a group texting app called Orca 6, 7 years ago, and I made a pod, that was their term, for the relatively tight group of friends that we've got, and they liked that, but it kinda didn't stick, and now the green bubble penalty of Android people in your
Yeah.
iPhone world and so on it's a very big deal. Back to the messaging thing for a second. One of the changes that's likely to happen if Apple is pretty, aggressive in their RCS adoption is much more, interactive media, etcetera, much richer messaging experience, and that's a domain that email will never be particularly good at. What do you think?
Depends. I have a lot of hope for AMP and email too.
Not gonna happen. Sorry.
Yeah. Right.
No, it's not gonna happen.
We're playing around a lot with it with some platforms like Stripo,
Sure.
Mailmodo,
Yeah.
some stuff that's working. I have hope.
Yeah.
I will say I would love to hear why you think it's not going to happen because I've had hope for a long time
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, and I get in Dutch for this one, but I'm actually blunt about it. And Dmitry Kudrenkov, CEO of Stripo, was a guest on Future of Email about a year and a half ago. So I love what the platform is doing. I think AMP is a valiant attempt to do a partial job of making email interactive,
Yep.
but Apple will never support AMP. It is incompatible with their privacy views. And that's 60% market share of email clients in the US.
Well, what I wonder too, I mean, I think about this a lot too, because Apple's privacy move, in my opinion, was very self serving. I don't think it had anything to do with actually wanting to protect people's privacy, right?
Tend to agree, yeah.
Um, but I do feel like with Apple, and this is just an overall sentiment, okay? They're still definitely the market leader. But like I look at their new Apple phone releases and I'm like, cool. So absolutely zero innovation.
Yeah, same thing over again.
For
Yeah,
years, no
yeah.
innovation, no innovation. And like Android phones really are actually like better hardware wise. And so for me,
Except for the chips.
yeah. And listen, I'm a hardcore Apple fan. I have a
Okay.
Mac, I have an iPhone. I love that brand. Like
Yeah.
my mom used to joke that she should be banned at Apple because for some reason she didn't know how to use any of their products, but she loves going to their stores. Um, and I've been a Mac adopter like way early. Like I was one of those people. I had a Mac when like none of the software I needed was actually available for my Mac in high school.
Yeah.
I just because they had like a cool deal, and I don't know how it happened, but I do wonder if like there's going to be bigger shifts, which means like Apple will lose their market lead. Like someone will come in and will disrupt, like the way Motorola was disrupted, the way Nokia was disrupted, who are all the incumbents at that time,
Mm.
and that can make AMP possible. Um, I actually don't even use Apple Mail anymore. I use Gmail on my phone.
I actually do. I do as well,
Yeah.
but that's me, that's you. Market share wise,
Yep.
sorry, it's 60. There's actually a I did a paper about this. There's a cold war in email that it's very difficult to see unless you look in the right place. 66%, give or take, market share of inboxes is Google's
Yeah.
email, but 60% or so of clients used to touch those inboxes are Apple. And that's a funny locus of control to duke it out like this. And I tend to suspect that the footprint of mobile operating systems is not a landscape that's as likely to get disrupted for the sake of the device. I do think how Google and Apple navigate the introduction of agents in artificial intelligence is could make or break their foothold there. Like, am I going to have a Square device in my pocket for the foreseeable future? Yes. Honestly, it's too damn useful not to.
Yeah.
What's the core purpose of that thing? That may shift. That may shift because it was phone calls and now it's not. And now it's sort of a digital Swiss Army knife is the reason I carry it. You know, it's my
Everything.
wallet, it's my this, it's my that, etc. If Apple bobbles the ball of making it my best friend, personally speaking, they could be in a world of hurt. They better be looking at that really, really hard, but so should Google.
Did you see the new, I don't remember what it's called. It's like this little square device you can put on
Yes.
your purse.
Yeah, the pin.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
pin, the
Yeah.
AI pin or something like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Thought it was an interesting attempt
Yeah.
at the vision.
Yeah, at the vision.
Not
Well,
going to buy it, still think there's a lot missing there, but I do think, speaking about the device thing, I do think it's interesting and it's important for email in the larger scope because what I am also noticing as a sentiment in consumers is they actually want to be away from their device more. They have their device with them, but it's almost like,
it's too much.
you're a smoker and you're trying to stop smoking.
Yeah.
So like, there has been a negative connotation to consistently being on your device and connected.
Mhm.
And I wonder how that is also going to um, decide the development of our connectedness.
Yeah, interesting
Your
question.
social, your phones.
Yeah. Interesting question. I mean, we are not done with this set of adoptions. Going back to the AMP and smartphone thing for one last time. Um, the other issue that is going to shape email's place in this evolving landscape that's pretty fundamental. It is fundamental. Is that email is one of the few DUMB dumb digital endpoints in our lives. There's no scripting, there's no programmability in email. That is a very big difference from every other channel we look at, including messaging systems.
Yeah.
And unless we end up with like a sort of full scale, um, actual, compute capable von Neumann machine in email, which I don't see on the landscape and I don't see backed by any standards bodies, email will remain the dumb endpoint. That may mean it's trustable in a way all the others aren't.
Yeah.
Um, which like it could be kind of its virtue in the long run. Like if you work much with lawyers, which I do at the moment for some interesting reasons, they think of email as like this fixed entity. Well, do you have the emails? I'm like, what do you mean the emails? Like I can actually change what's in your inbox, which freaks them out. Because they think of it as a static fixed thing. It's hard to think. You don't think of a web page as a static fixed thing. You don't think of an app as a static fixed thing. You shouldn't think of text messages as that either. Although judging from recent lawsuits and government activity, maybe text messages are kind of there as well. But email's dumb. Like your Gmail client does no scripting except for AMP.
Yeah.
So
Well, it is interesting, right? Because I can send a text message via Apple and then go and edit it later. or
There
I'm
you go. A
sending.
good example. Yeah, good
I can't
example.
really do that with
Can't
email.
really do that with email.
Lawyers are a funny example because lawyers send emails like I just had one from a lawyer too. It's like confidential, like it's
Yeah.
like they took email and they basically made it what like really confidential documents used to be.
Yes. Yes.
Oh. It's funny that you mentioned lawyers because they do view email that way.
They live on it, man. And like some of the email threads from it goes, I was just looking at one this morning. It months. Du- 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 du,
Yeah.
And thinking of it as a confidential channel, like, God, I hate to tell you guys, but it's like leaks like a sieve. Right. I don't want to send you that as a doc. I need to do it confidentially in email.
Yeah,
Oof, okey doke. Whatever you think there, guys, but,
for sure.
yeah, not necessarily an early adopter. It's
But I am curious too, like with phones, something that I've been going down the rabbit hole of is I keep getting calls and then these calls are duped under like my boyfriend's brother. He's called me twice and I call him back. And then he goes, I never called you. And I'm like, I had you
Yeah,
as a missed phone call on
yeah,
my
this
phone.
spoof number.
They're spoofing numbers. So I wonder like how that's going to happen with texts as well, if that's a danger.
Yeah.
Uh, so
Well,
yeah,
the thing about
Salmon's fixed really good.
the texting and messaging world, I mean, we've got this odd interleave again, especially in the US with the phone number. You're in much more regulated territory there than you are with email. I mean, government technical involvement in email is darn near nil. Government
Yep.
technical involvement in phone numbers? Yeah, there's some laws and regs and infrastructure with big nasty teeth there.
Yep.
So your company that bought a bunch of phone numbers and started dumping messages on them, yeah, of course they got a class action lawsuit
Yep.
facing them. Yeah, trust is gonna be a hard thread to hold on to between the explosion of channels and the explosion of credible looking content that we're already seeing from AI. It's it's just gonna this is gonna be a bit of a messy world.
Very.
Yeah, very. Um, one last hook to back to email marketing. Because you talked about the importance of segmentation, and we touched on the difficulty of sort of acquiring enough data to segment meaningfully. I'm kind of on record as saying the first party personalization thing is ridiculously difficult, and in most cases, no one's actually doing it successfully. Gartner even agrees with me. What do you think?
First party personalization, like in email. So saying, for example, give me an example of what you think's not working.
Well, if you're a furniture company, selling custom furniture, was that your example early in your career?
Yeah, totally.
How long did it take before you knew enough about somebody to put them in a segment other than general?
Not very long actually.
Did they have to purchase to get there?
So it depends, like yes and no. There are parts, and again, this is Klaviyo Shopify integration that I get very easily. If you
Yeah.
do sign up, you obviously have to for email, you have to sign up, right? I
Yep.
have to get
Yeah.
you to
Yes.
sign up. If you do sign up, there's a data like for not purchasing, like I said, there's a data point that I can get that comes from the pop-up.
Mhm.
What we've seen with the pop-ups is the more questions I ask, the more the conversion rate goes down.
Yep.
But the more questions I ask, the higher is my conversion rate and the welcome flow I send you after because it's more personalized.
Okay. So you trade
Yeah.
off you trade off the friction at the front end for return on the back end of
Correct.
higher personalization.
Well, the first party data there is really first party
There's
because they
first part.
don't
Yeah.
they tell you.
Yeah.
Um, the other thing that we can see is like site visits, products they looked at,
Mhm.
if they added to cart, what they added to cart, right? So we get behavioral data from them, which is pretty cool. With
Mhm.
that, we can do a lot of segments too, right? Because I can go and I can say, show me everyone who has been on the website in the last 30 days and viewed more than 5 products, as an example. Or show me everyone who's been active on the website but has not looked at a single product. And then I can say, okay, now my goal is to get them to click to the products.
Yeah.
That first party data works. Other stuff like email behavior works, right? Like show me everyone who's clicked on an email in the last Black Friday, Cyber Monday deal series. And then I can market to them now with a special discount code. That stuff works. Now, if we're talking about like who they are, what they do, when they purchase, we get more stuff on like predictive gender, which is something cool that Klaviyo does. So they can predict the gender with AI. We get a predicted purchase amount. We get a predicted customer lifetime value. We get all that from AI once we have more behavior on their end. So once they do purchase, we can build a little bit of a better profile.
Mm-hmm.
But listen, as a complete, no, not in any means. Absolutely.
And it's skewed towards the brand specific interaction, like the brand that says, you bought a lot of fishing gear, you must drive a pickup. Judging from the fishing gear, not from me.
Yep.
Right.
Correct.
And maybe it's a reasonable stretch, but it's like, I call it like looking through the slit in the fence, right? That's just your stuff. That's not my whole life.
100%. We're
Hard to
making
put.
a lot of assumptions.
Well, although Klaviyo, Shopify, and you're working in a richer ecosystem from that perspective than most email marketers. A lot of the examples that you just ticked off are very hard to get outside of that tighter knit ecosystem. And Shopify, I believe, they're building quite a segmentation data set on Shopify interactions across their network of stores, and I assume that a lot of Klaviyo customers probably tap that.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, that, that would be insane if we can get access to all that data. Like if they can go and they look at my email and they look every single Shopify store I have purchased at,
Yeah.
customer profile like that.
Yeah.
I don't know if I want.
Then we end up with the privacy question, don't we?
Yeah. I don't know if I want that to be released to e-commerce brands at once, but I do know that if it were, they could build a much more accurate profile of myself. And again, listen, I think about this all the time because on Instagram for a while when they were like, ask app not to track, I would just say, yes, don't ask the app to track. And then I was like, I am not getting ads that I care about. Now I'm just getting shitty. Excuse me. Now I'm just getting bad ads.
I'm with you. Yeah. I'm with you.
And so now I just tell you know what, it's fine, track. So at least that the ads I get are interesting to me.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, and that's a great laser on example. I mean, when Apple, back to Apple, when Apple threw that monkey wrench in a whole bunch of business models, particularly Facebook's, with the app tracking transparency thing, like it put a lot of hurt on Facebook in particular because they lost the data flow that had been there for a decade. Some people, and I'm partially with you there, like, there's ads that I just don't need to see, like I'm never going to buy, etc. Should I surrender a bit more of my data to get more relevant stuff? I do. One of the reasons I buy things on Amazon is to stick with a channel that already knows a lot about me. I might as well go there, right?
Yeah.
It's faster, it's easier, preferences, purchase history, all that other stuff. But we're trying to figure out this balancing act as a culture at large now. You're in California, privacy regs, Washington, unusual, surprisingly important privacy reg under the guise of health. About 9 other states have done this. We don't have a national policy or national law, and I think we're a couple of years away from that, judging from my conversations in that space. And I'm not sure that you could get 100 people in a room and get them to agree on where that trade-off should lie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know either. I think it's difficult. Like I said, I mean, you saw in my personal life, that was
Yeah.
that was a back and forth decision.
Well, and it is one of the things that makes the marketing domain kind of interesting because we do have to live right. We do have to live right on the knife edge of that stuff. Do you ask me 8 questions so you can send me a better email? Will I answer 8 questions or will I bail? Yeah.
Well, it's also interesting. Like, did you hear that they were going to roll out like personalized pricing for flights? Essentially, if they know based off of your data that you're willing to pay more, they're going to make your ticket more expensive. If they know you're not willing to pay more, they're going to make it cheaper. And like, listen, if I could do this in my business and someone has a huge budget and they don't care and I can sell it to them for more, sure. But then ethically, I'm like, that just seems wrong. Okay, and
Yeah.
and as a consumer on top of that, I'm like, no, now I'm actually mad. So,
Well, here, let me give you a hypothetical question. This may have to be a follow-up, not a podcast conversation. If I could put a signal in your sign-up form that gave you strong indicators about, household income or interest or whatever else, would you be ethically okay with differentiating what products or offers or whatever went out in the welcome email to those segments.
I think what I would be ethically okay with is tailoring it to your needs. So, like, if I see you're a company with a big budget,
Mhm.
I might send you our larger package, this many emails at this price point. I don't think I could ethically send you the same package at different price points.
I see. I see. Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
I think that'll be made me feel weird. I'm like, you're getting the same service. I'm just, I,
Yeah. Well, easy example to drag in because it's fun to beat them up, but that bobble that BMW had about 6 months ago with charging for the seat heaters to be on or not. Like, they're already wired into the car. Are you insane? No way this is not good. No way this is gonna end well for BMW as a move because it just feels
yeah.
unfair. It feels wrong. It feels stupid. It feels like a gouge, right?
And I think planes have done that too, Nora. Like if you fly Spirit Airlines, I'm like, the next thing you're going to have to pay extra for is to breathe air.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you have to hold your breath the entire flight.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think people are, companies are trying to maximize profits. Also, because in a lot of times the landscape has gotten harder for them, I'm sure. And I think there's going to come a point where consumers are going to be, you know, feeling scammed.
Yeah. Well, I think we're getting there already. I heard someone of a much younger generation me say, something like, "Yeah, late stage capitalism, we monetize everything," and it was like, I could certainly see why there's such emotion behind that statement because it
Yeah.
feels like you get pecked to death.
Yeah. I mean,
Well,
Gen Z especially
yeah.
is very, very anti-capitalism. Um, it feels like.
If yeah, yeah. That's a whole nother interesting conversation. And Gen Z and email is an interesting one as well.
Yeah,
But
they don't like email. That's
yeah,
what
they
I'm
do,
saying.
right? That's cool. Well, we're at the top of the hour, and I promised I would not tie. Ooh, in fact, someone else is going to jump on another Zoom here, so I should probably bail. But Melanie, I'm so glad you made the time. This is one of the more rabbit hole conversations we've had.
Yeah, thank you, Matthew. I know we went a lot of different routes, but a lot of different stuff happening that will affect, I think, email and SMS that are
Yeah,
bigger picture conversations to think about.
yeah, yeah. Hey, if someone is interested, whether it's getting your help setting up their email department or getting you to, help them with their marketing period, where's the best place for them to reach out and contact your company?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn, Melanie Balke, or just go to www.theemailmarketers.com. You can book a call with me pretty easily through that website as well.
Cool. Well, I look forward to our next conversation. Thanks so much for making the time.
Thank you.